national and international news and features. But for now, I'm Kevin McAleese in Washington, alongside producer Simon Marks and Rebecca Hume on the bulletin desk. For everyone with feature story news everywhere, have a great evening. Goodbye.
The Labor Forum is brought to you each week by your Teamster friends and neighbors. The Teamsters have over a century of experience in enriching and protecting the rights of workers nationwide, and they continue to build on that proud legacy every day. With 1.4 million members, 30% of whom are women, Teamsters can be found in almost every major industry. They're the hard-working men and women whose jobs have always helped keep America strong, while providing the goods and services that keep the country running smoothly. Want more information?
Good afternoon. Welcome. You are listening to the Labor Forum here on WRFG 89.3 FM in Atlanta. And my name is Diane Mathowitz. I'm a retired auto worker and have been the host of this program for several years. Again, a shout out to Gary Washington, who initiated this program in 1986 and made sure that part of the mission of WRFG, which is to give voice to those who oftentimes are not considered, even listened to or heard or seen on corporate media, have an opportunity to present their issues. So again, thanks to Gary. The song that always starts this program off is We Do the Work by John Fromer, and we like to have the people on this program who do the work and therefore keep society running. The opinions, though, that are expressed on this program may not necessarily be those of the Board of Directors, staff, or volunteers here at WRFG. Now, today's topic is unemployment compensation cuts in Georgia, and we've had several programs about that. You may remember 2 years ago, Secretary of Labor Mark Butler unilaterally decided after years of school workers, such as bus drivers, cafeteria workers, crossing guards, maintenance staff, in other words, people who have been employed by companies that school boards have subcontracted out work to, that those workers were not eligible for receiving unemployment when they were laid off because the school was shut down. And there was a vigorous fight and a successful pushback, and in fact the state of Georgia had to pay back something like $8 million in unemployment benefits to those workers. Now, here we are, 2014, and the Georgia legislature is now considering a law that would legalize the ineligibility of these thousands of very valuable, but I have to say, terribly underpaid workers from receiving unemployment compensation. Here in the studio today is Chris Bauman. He is with SEIU, Workers United, and some of the cafeteria workers who are impacted by, first were impacted 2 years ago when the Secretary of State or Secretary of Labor cut the unemployment off. he represents some of those workers, and so therefore he represents some of the workers who would be impacted terrifically if this law passes. So welcome to the Labor Forum, Chris.
Hey, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me, Diane.
Thank you for braving this weather. You know, I think probably we're on a 24-hour news cycle about rain and snow and sleet, and so it's interesting that the Georgia legislature took today off. I assume they won't be in their offices tomorrow either, and I guess that sort of means maybe they can't do bad stuff. But on Monday, this House committee and the House passed on this bill. So let's start off by just finding out, where does the money that's in unemployment compensation fund, where's it come from?
It comes from all employers here in the state of Georgia. There is a tax that they pay for all the employees, a certain percentage up to the first $9,500 that employees make, and that tax goes into the unemployment insurance fund. And then that way, if workers are laid off for any reason in the state of Georgia, they can apply for unemployment and get unemployment benefits.
And let's be clear, just because you're laid off from your job doesn't necessarily mean you even get unemployment. There's all kinds of rules you have to have, conditions you have to have. So what are those?
Well, there's different things. I mean, there's different standards you have to meet, that you have to be laid off. And in this case, they're actually trying to cut back the number of people that would actually get unemployment. Sometimes, obviously, in cases if somebody's terminated for not a layoff, that's a case when somebody wouldn't get unemployment. So a lot of times it's very complicated. There's you're not guaranteed to get it, but the intent is for folks that are laid off, especially for economic reasons that they have while they're looking for another job, or while there's a break in their job, that they at least have some income to help them through hard times, just like any insurance that you have. Yeah.
So I know one of the things is that you have to have worked in so many quarters over such a period of time. So again, somebody who just gets a job, their first job, and gets laid off, they're not eligible.
That's right.
So let's make it really clear, folks, that the unemployment compensation is a tangle to get through to begin with. Now we have this new law that might limit school workers who, such as bus drivers, cafeteria workers, as I said, maintenance, crossing guards, etc. Let's talk a little bit about what the impact of that was when it happened 2 years ago. Your members, many of them suffered terrific dislocation of their lives. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was devastating for many people, and I don't use that word lightly, because all of a sudden people, as we had the hearing a couple days ago, Willie Blackman talked about that on a good day, you're always one paycheck away from being out on the streets anyway when you are working. And so these workers had depended on the unemployment, and it basically got no warning. So there was no time for them to prepare for being without this income. And so people literally lost their homes. People had a hard time finding food. They had to go to food pantries. A lot, but just because they weren't prepared. I mean, and then they had to pick, whatever little money they might have had saved up, they had to pick which bills they were going to pay. So, water bill, electricity, and then also, they're responsible. A lot of them have health insurance, and so, you have to keep up your insurance premiums. If you don't keep up your insurance premiums, then you've lost it for the year. So there was all kinds of hardship that we heard from our members, and the community really rallied to try to help, raise funds, food drives, things like that. But when you're talking about 60,000 people, it's a lot for the community to cover.
Okay, so let's talk about this other element, though. One of the things, of course, Georgia has had some of the highest unemployment rates in the country. We still do. Supposedly the recession is over. You can't tell the tens of thousands, if not millions, of people who can't find a job.
That's right.
And so Georgia, for one thing, has cut the number of weeks. They did this last year.
Yes.
So they've cut the number of weeks, and now they want to eliminate, as you said, the potentiality of some 60,000 very hardworking, very important people in the education system, such as the school bus drivers, who were all hailed as heroes
That's correct.
just a week ago,
That's
2
right.
weeks ago. Now this legislature wants to make it that they can't get unemployment. Let me ask this question, though. It was raised at this hearing that when Georgia economy was flourishing, the legislature decided to give all of those companies a tax break. Can you talk about that?
Yes, it actually happened from the year 2000 to the year 2003. At the time, there was a $1 billion surplus in the insurance fund. And actually, Governor Barnes was in office at that time, and the legislature gave a tax holiday to all businesses in the state of Georgia for those 3 years. I know it was 2000 to 2003, almost 4 years, where basically no taxes were paid in. And then, as we know, soon after that, a few years after, when we had the Great Recession, we could have really used those resources at that time, so we weren't in the mess that we're in now. Yep.
Okay, so the interesting thing then, of course, is Georgia's unemployment compensation fund was short, probably, who knows how much money, I certainly don't know, by 3, if not 4 years of no taxes being paid into it at all. Then the recession hits.
That's right.
Lots and lots of people lose their jobs. The fund gets depleted. They have to borrow money from the federal government.
That's right.
And then, how do they figure out how to pay it back?
They cut the amount of time people could get unemployment. So I think it was people could get it for 26 weeks, up to 26 weeks before the change was made. And now it's been reduced from 12 weeks to 20 weeks. It can be in that range. And so, as we know, especially with the high unemployment that we have right now, and there's a lot of statistics showing that it takes, if you are out of work, when economic times are good, you might be able to move into a job quicker. But now you hear folks being out for 6 months to over a year and even longer, and they depend on those unemployment benefits, and so that was cut, and so that just makes it a lot harder. Also, they pushed it back a week that you could, in the beginning of your unemployment, to get eligibility. So they kind of cut the money on both ends, which creates a real hardship for people.
Okay, so again, if you just sort of said, what's fair, you go, well, what's fair is that all the businesses that didn't have to pay taxes for 3 years, there would be a bump in that.
Right. And they did, I mean, to be fair, they did raise it a little bit at that time. I think it went from as I mentioned earlier in the show, the cap is now $9,500 what they can tax. At that time, I think it was $8,500, so it went up a little bit. But at the time, we were still $3,000 below the national average. So there's many states that tax a higher percentage of people's income at the beginning. And so if the state of Georgia were to do that, that would actually provide more funds. Because what happened, most of the burden to fix the problem was put on workers, unemployed workers, and that's where the most of the cost savings came from. And if they could just do what other states do and raise that rate, it would definitely help the situation. But again, now they're with the bill that we're talking about now, the solution is being put on the backs of working people in the state.
So you just said that one of the things that other states do is that the tax is on the first 12,000 or the first.
That's correct.
Whatever. Instead of Georgia, it's the first 9,500. Okay, so what that really means to me is that the higher earning workers, the companies that have higher earning workers, and therefore you might think that their profit margin was even bigger.
That's correct.
Get a real.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, that's exactly. I mean, that plays out. With the lower tax rates, the businesses benefit, but people that need the unemployment insurance are really struggling because, like I said, if that money gets cut off early for all people, then they're going to find themselves in the same situation the school workers were in a couple summers ago, just trying to figure out how to make ends meet.
We're going to take a little short break for a very important message from WRFG, and I want everybody who's a listener of the Labor Forum to take heed. And please pay attention to this message, and we'll be right back with Chris.
Greetings, WRFG family and friends. We trust all are safe, sound, and thawed out from the icy, stormy weather we just came through here in Atlanta. As is typical of this season, our funding sources are to a slow grind, and we are in need of your financial support. We are once again launching the 100 by 100 campaign. The campaign goal is to get at least 100 people to each donate $100 by the end of the month. Your help is essential if WRFG is to get through this cash flow crunch. In addition to your own contribution, we are asking that you do the following. Promote the 100 by 100 campaign as often as possible to your friends and family. Encourage them to donate online at WRFG.org. Click How to Donate and select the 100 by 100 option. Also, post an email on your Facebook or other social media and ask friends to post it as well. Call friends, relatives, co-workers, etc. Send the appeal to your email lists. Feel free to post, email, tweet, recite it over the phone. Every bit helps. Thank you all so much for supporting your favorite community radio station, WRFG 89.3 FM, your station for progressive information and hand-picked quality music.
This is Diane Mathewitz back with the Labor Forum. Chris Bauman is in our studio. He is with SEIU, Workers United, and we've been talking about this. Really, it's a crisis of the unemployment compensation being cut. First to this group of workers, but we have to say, really, it cut all the workers who receive, who have the potentiality of receiving unemployment last year when it was reduced to 14 weeks, and yet Georgia has one of the longest, lingering, highest number of people who are unemployed. I want to ask a little bit of questions now about this bill that's making its way. It had hearings in the House. Can we talk a little bit about these not so public hearings that occurred?
Yes. So, we mentioned earlier that we had won a big victory, last year by getting the money reinstated that had been cut off. Because last time the decision was made by the Secretary of Labor here in Georgia, Mark Butler. He had done it on his own, which, based on current law, was not legal, and so that decision was reversed. But now the state legislature is going through an effort to make it the law, and so it started with a bill in the House side of the General Assembly. The chairman of the Industry and Labor Committee, Mark Hamilton, was the sponsor of the bill, along with a lot of the Republican leaders in the legislature. And it was about 2 weeks ago that we got a call at our office about 11 o'clock in the morning that there was going to be a subcommittee hearing about the bill 3 hours later. And so, at that time, it was virtually impossible to have working people that would be impacted by this bill to get off of work to make changes to be there. We had some staff there, some community folks came out. But what was interesting about this meeting was that people from Valdosta, southern parts of the state, just happened to know about this meeting and were to testify for the bill. And we've heard rumors since then that, and even Democratic members on the subcommittee said that they weren't notified of the subcommittee meeting, and they're on the committee. They weren't notified until the same time we were. I've heard rumors, from other folks, is that Republican members had received a letter about 4 days before, and certainly if people that were for the bill could travel, 4 hours to a meeting, they clearly had to have some advance notice and were prepared. So then it moved to the, and that, of course, I think it was a 6-3 vote. It was on party lines. All the Republicans on the committee voted to move it to the full committee. The 3 Democrats voted no. And so last Thursday, they gave about 2 days' notice that the whole committee would be reviewing the bill. And so this time we were able to get workers there, school bus drivers, the heroes that you mentioned, and we'll depend on again in this weather we're about to get over the next couple of days. They were there. We had cafeteria workers along with many folks from the community. But now that our side was there in force, the committee, the chairs decided not to have public comment. And so we actually, they did take comment from the members of the committee, and then when they were ready to move it to a motion, a number of us stood up to say, well, is it now the time to have public comment? And he said, well, the public had their opportunity 2 weeks ago. And, of course, we challenged that, but they did not allow the public to speak. The vote again passed along party lines, but that day we did stay and have our own hearing,
Right.
and we did get that got out to the media. At least the voices were heard in the larger public about especially the workers that were going to be impacted, how this was going to hurt them if this bill passes.
Okay, so then my understanding is that the number of this bill is 714.
Yeah, it's House Bill 714.
And then it went to the full House
Yesterday.
yesterday
Yes.
and passed.
It did, but not. There was some rigorous debate before the bill was actually voted on, and so the Democratic side, put the minority leader Stacey Abrams did a really good job of really raising a lot of the larger questions that had not happened at the subcommittee level. Like things moved so quickly at the subcommittee level that there were, hard questions weren't really asked. And one of the points that she made was that this is going to be $8 to $10 million that will be taken out of local communities. That means local food banks, local social service agencies are going to have to pick that up. So
Right.
we're just moving the cost from one area to another. And as we know, local government is really strapped now for funds, especially when you get out into rural areas and they're
Right.
struggling. But at the end of the day, despite the debate, the bill passed through the House. It was 111 for it, 60 against. Again, it was all on party lines except Representative Green, Representative Sims, two Republicans voted against it, along with the Representative Kidd, who's an independent from Milledgeville. But other than that, it was a straight party vote.
So now it moves over to the Senate side.
That's correct.
Okay, so now this means this same process occurs where there's going to be another public hearing before a subcommittee and then a committee vote and then.
Right. We hope. I mean, that's it's really at the discretion of the leadership of the Senate. I mean, we hope that the Senate doesn't follow the same suit as the House and that they'll actually open the space to have rigorous debate, open the space for the public to come and speak about the impact of this bill on many levels. So it has not been assigned. It gets it has to get assigned a number. On the Senate side, it'll get assigned to a committee. Our guess is that it'll be the Insurance and Labor Committee. But then you're right, it goes through a very similar process in the Senate. And then finally, it goes to Governor Nathan Deal's desk, and he always has the opportunity to veto it.
And there's we're halfway through the session.
Yes.
So one of the things that often happens here in Georgia is either things fall apart in the last day, or they get passed without hardly any discussion, perusal. People don't even know what they're voting for.
That's right.
One of the things I wanted to ask about, though, was I just blanked. Was the issue of I guess of the democracy of it all. The fact that there can be a hearing about something this important scheduled so last minute, and that the leadership of the committee can be so cavalier.
That's right.
As the person was, I was at that meeting this past Thursday, and I almost fell out of my seat when the man who's the author of this bill said that he had made some changes. He moved the effective date from this coming summer to January 1st of 2015, so that technically these workers will be able to get unemployment if they're if all the other eligibility is found to be so this summer and the Christmas break. But then he said that this would give them time to make lifestyle changes.
That's
and
correct.
I wanted to say, what kind of lifestyle change was he thinking about for people who were making $8, $9, $10 an hour?
Well, I mean, he was much more specific on the House floor yesterday. I mean, he basically said people can go find other jobs. So if they don't no longer want to be a school bus driver or cafeteria worker, they can leave this job. Which it sounds easy in an argument, but we know that if somebody's been a bus driver their career or a cafeteria worker, that's what they do, and especially in rural areas, there's not a lot of opportunities to move into other jobs that are similar, especially as we talked about the unemployment rates that are there. He talked about people can save up for the summers. which which is
Laughable.
sounds good, but people struggle to get by day to day. I mean, many folks make just above minimum wage, so they're not making a lot. But then again, he kept, and what he's done from the beginning, the way he talks about it, that the bad guys here are the businesses. And often he talks about sympathy for the workers that are involved, and he talks about, well, these companies can just now start to pay these workers for 12 months, or they should pay them more, which sounds great. I mean, on face value, I think we would all agree with that. But the reality is, and again, some points were raised in the debate yesterday, is that a lot of these contracts are 5 to 10 year contracts, and and it was raised again by Minority Leader Abrams. She raised, did you do any analysis of these types of contracts? And he said, no, we haven't looked at that. So on face value, it sounds like, oh, these things can be fixed easily. Either the workers can change their life or the companies can change theirs. But in reality, we all know this doesn't happen except in rare cases.
Well, again, the thing that struck me in the times that I've had conversation with people about this unemployment compensation cutback is that the companies got a 3-year tax break.
That's correct.
They are already paying low wages.
Yes.
Many of these workers are eligible for food stamps and other services, social services. Their kids can be on Peach Care that the state is already providing. But yet when this bill comes in and they're saying that the problem is that corporations, and they name some of the really big ones, the ones that make billions in profits, who run food services, who run bus transportation services that the school systems subcontract out to, they're the ones who are paying the low wages, but there's no repercussion here. It was that, well, if their workers all leave, one of them said that he was a believer in capitalism and the market system, so if the workers all leave, then they'll be forced to pay higher wages.
Right, that was one of the arguments he made as well, on that. So then we don't have anyone to. And also the question is, so who's going to take our kids to school and cook for them? And again, people need jobs. In capitalism right now, folks don't have a lot of luxury to move around.
Well, not only that, it goes back to it was again interesting. Here were some of these heroic bus drivers, heroic cafeteria workers who stayed at schools, fed people.
That's right.
Some workers walked from their homes to go back to the schools to make sure that the students were okay. So here's people who, and they all said in the testimony that they gave about how they regarded these children like their own.
That's
that
right.
They were that committed to the welfare of these kids. And yet, so cavalierly, well, so go get a different job. And, I don't know who we'll find.
Right. No, exactly. It's just, there's so many questions, and you're exactly right. We saw, everybody watched the news during the horrible things that happened during the snowstorm. People, and the image I think most people remember were those school buses out there, and imagining what it must be like for that school bus driver with, all those kids, scared that they're away from home, with no food, no place to go to the bathroom, and they could have just walked away from their bus. Yeah, I guess it'd been hard to do with the weather, but no, they stuck it out until every one of those kids was taken care of. And you heard stories like the Woodward Academy, which is a private school here in Atlanta. They gave their bus drivers a $1,000 bonus to recognize everything they did. And then you look at the impact this bill is, you're probably going to take $1,000 to $2,000 out of the pockets of the people we just raised up. What a wonderful thing they did, and we'll be doing again in this storm in the next couple of days, especially the cafeteria workers who we represent in the college campuses. They were already having to gear up to either walk to work, which many of them will do, or stay there to try to make sure that these kids get fed during this storm we're about to have.
Right, because the students who are in dormitories
that's right.
have to be fed.
Exactly.
All right, Chris, if you've got some contact information or some other places where people can find out more information about this unemployment bill, and also any suggestions that for people out there who are interested and want to weigh in on what they think should happen?
Sure. Well, what we're encouraging our members to do, and if folks that want to do that, is first of all, keep informed about what's going on. There's organizations like Jobs with Justice, with their website. You go on there. They're giving updates. Keep an eye on the news. It has been getting a lot of coverage, and we're encouraging people to call. Call members of the Senate. Call the committee chairs. Call the leadership of the Senate to have your voice heard on that.
And if there's anybody out there who thinks, oh, I might be interested in becoming a member of Workers United, SEIU, what's your number?
Oh yeah, our number is 770-306-8856. They can just call and we'll get them connected.
All right, I want to thank Chris Bauman so much for making it in today. Tomorrow we're going to be talking with two of the youth that were participants in yesterday's Stand Your Ground rally that also resulted in the arrests of 23, I've heard two different numbers, Moral Monday activists. This is Diane saying bye for today.
Racism, we will not bow down to